These are dark times, there is no denying. Our world has perhaps faced no greater threat than it does today. But I say this to our citizenry. We, ever your servants, will continue to defend your liberty and repel the forces that seek to take it from you.
You're listening to The Stephen Torriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Stephen Torriello Show. And now, here's Stephen.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. So, article here, Gateway Pundit, hat tip to the one and only Jim Hoft. A gun-safe manufacturer, Liberty Safe, gives FBI access code to a protester safe who was arrested at gunpoint due to his involvement in the January 6th Capitol event. This, ladies and gentlemen, this kind of stuff should terrify everybody. Ever since they announced that these January 6th investigations for anybody that went to the protest on January 6th that day has turned into like some kind of Stasi secret police. It has turned into something like we've never seen before in this country. So they've already arrested 1,000 people. They say they're looking for another 1,000 people. And so at this point, it seems like all of the taxpayer-funded intel agencies have been turned to target Americans. This should be terrifying for everyone, no matter who you are. Because if this is the type of behavior we're going to experience from the FBI, from the taxpayer-funded intel agencies, the federal police with badges and guns, then I think it's time to start talking about defunding. Why are the American taxpayers funding for their own demise? Why should this guy that had his house raided at gunpoint and had his safe broken into by the FBI, why should he have to pay taxes for a law enforcement that is targeting him? This is what I don't get. Liberty Safe, a renowned manufacturer of gun safes, is drawing scrutiny after complying with an FBI request to provide the combination to a safe owned by Nathan Hughes, who was present in the January 6, 2021 Capitol event. Keith and Kevin Hodge, known as the Hodge twins, broke the news revealing that their friend Hughes was arrested in Fayetteville, Arkansas on Wednesday, August 30th. The duo pointed out the contrast between the treatment of Hughes and the members of groups like BLM and Antifa, questioning the motivations behind such disparate actions. We just talked about this on our last episode. The disparate treatment between BLM rioters and Antifa rioters that caused $1 billion in damage and killed people versus the people that were walking around and went inside the Capitol building on January 6th. One is treated like an actual domestic terrorist, and the other is just treated as somebody that had to unleash a little bit of rage during the George Floyd riots. This is unacceptable, and we're going to see this type of behavior getting worse and worse. So according to the Hodge twins, Nathan Hughes was raided by the FBI and arrested at gunpoint over his involvement in the January 6th Capitol event that occurred more than 2.5 years ago. On the morning of August 30th, I was swarmed by 3 vehicles of heavily armed FBI agents and arrested with rifles pointed at me. I was booked and taken to a government facility where they made me give them DNA samples. At the same time, the FBI raided Hughes' house and disconnected his security cameras and disabled his internet. Nathan Hughes' girlfriend, who had recently suffered a miscarriage, who was also held at gunpoint and handcuffed. Not only did they turn off his security cameras and his internet, but the FBI also called the manufacturer of Hughes' gun safe. The company willingly provided the safe's passcode to the FBI after receiving proof of a valid warrant. Look, man, nobody should support this gun safe manufacturer. I'm sorry, and they issued an apology. They issued a statement towards the end. We're going to go through it. Nobody should support this gun-safe manufacturer if they do not realize and understand what time it is in this country. I'm telling you, these people do not realize what time it is. I don't care if there was a warrant. I don't care what it was. These people should have did everything they could to refuse, even if that meant putting themselves in jeopardy. This is what makes me think Elon Musk is a freaking American hero. He was faced with the same situation where they wanted him to turn over Donald Trump's tweets in the archive, and Elon Musk essentially refused. He refused all the way up until they started fining him $300,000 a day, but still it took months. But at least he knew what time it was. This guy gets it. These people at Liberty Safe don't get it. And so it's just unfortunate that we have to go through this. Now, places like Apple, I'm going to give you some advice. And this is some advice somebody gave me. If the FBI ever comes to you and takes your cell phone and you have an Apple phone, do not give them your passcode. And it's just so crazy that I'm saying this right now. I never used to be like this. I was pro FBI. I thought the FBI, the CIA, I was on their side. I thought these places, these institutions they were the safety and security for our country. I thought they were there to protect Americans. But now that they're coming after regular patriotic Americans like they're some kind of domestic terrorist doing pre-dawn SWAT raids, I find myself not liking the FBI. I find myself not liking the CIA, and I find myself not liking the government, period. I'm becoming more anti-government every single day. I want the government to have little to do with my life as possible. I want the government to be so small that nobody even notices it. I want the government to be there to balance the checkbooks and protect our southern borders. That is it. That is it. I want the government to be there on like a skeleton crew. And I don't even want them there all year. I want them to come in like every 5 months, every 6 months, balance the checkbook, pass spending bills, and then occasionally have emergency hearings when there's obviously an emergency. That's how I feel the government's role should be. And so the advice somebody gave me was if you are forced to turn over your iPhone, if the FBI or the government comes and takes your iPhone, do not give them the passcode to the iPhone because it takes them years to crack the iPhone, and Apple will not hand over the passcode, period. We've went through this before when there was a case that was taking a long time and they needed evidence off of the iPhone, and Apple refused to hand over the passcode. So the FBI was forced to hack the phone, and it took them over 2 years. And so this is why the advice that I was given was do not give the passcode and let them find it. Make them work for it because it takes so long that most of the time they don't even want to do it. So just some little advice there. And I can't believe I'm giving you the advice because I never thought I would be this anti-FBI, but apparently the FBI is anti-American patriot. These people are the federal police with badges and guns that I guarantee you the founding fathers would absolutely despise. So, quote, at the same time, my home was raided by 10 plus vehicles filled with armed FBI agents. This is another thing I don't get. Is it not possible for the FBI to just issue a phone call, maybe? Maybe a phone call? Like, hey, turn yourself in, or hey, whatever it is. Why are these pre-dawn raids with rifles and SWAT vehicles, why are they necessary? What's going to start happening is you're going to have people starting to get killed. And this just happened not that long ago. To somebody that they claimed was threatening President Biden, they went over there and shot and killed him. Even though he was unarmed. He was a disabled veteran that was disabled, I think, from the neck down. He was a disabled veteran, and they stormed his house and shot and killed him. This is what happens when you have FBI raids like this. And it may be okay now, but eventually people are going to start getting killed. Because when you purposely invoke a situation like this, high intensity, everybody's on high alert, really for no reason. I don't see any reason why they had to be, just a simple knock on the door by the FBI wouldn't suffice. Why do you have to bring armed FBI agents and do a pre-dawn SWAT raid on the house? It doesn't make sense. And I hate seeing patriotic Americans that were there on January 6th protesting that election that we all know was a rigged election. I hate to see these people being considered and treated like domestic terrorists. It's a shame. It is a shame. And all these people, the FBI, the CIA, these judges, these prosecutors, these DAs, should all be ashamed of themselves. And especially the undercover informants that were there that day at January 6th. All these people should be ashamed of themselves. Ashamed. They ordered my girlfriend Taylor out of the house with her hands up and had rifles pointed at her too. They put her in handcuffs, unplugged our home security cameras, and turned our house upside down, searching it. A bunch of stuff from electronics to clothes was taken, and we can't find one of our security cams. They called the manufacturer of my Liberty safe, got the passcode from them, and got into it. Thank God our dogs weren't harmed. According to Hughes, he was released with a GPS tracking ankle monitor and can't leave Northwest Arkansas. Quote, I can't talk about the case. It's from January 6th, 2021 at the Capitol. But I can say that there are many things out there that point me as a violent, anti-American domestic terrorist, and I wholeheartedly am not that. I've got a long legal journey ahead now, and I will face this head on and post updates. Thank you all for the support. This is just sad, man. This is sad that these American patriots are going through this because they went to a protest to protest that sham election. It was a sham election, and everybody knows it. And these people had every right to go protest and speak their voice. Now, I'm not making excuses for anybody that was violent, but that sure in the hell wasn't thousands of people that they're arresting. You know, like, it's just unacceptable, man. So he is being charged with crimes related to January 6th. He didn't assault anyone, and he didn't vandalize anything. He is being labeled a domestic terrorist and a traitor to this country by woke leftists and the media. This is the problem. The media. The media is acting like a propaganda arm for the administrative state. They are essentially what Pravda was during the Soviet Union. And it's kind of concerning when you have judges that are apparently watching MSNBC and watching the Pravda outlets, and they are being manipulated and influenced by the leftist Pravda media. And this is why these judges are acting like lunatics and sentencing these people to 20 and 30 years for knocking down a fence or breaking out a window. Okay? And who knows, they're probably going to come after all of us soon. This is clearly worrisome to me, and it should be to everybody. But you know what? It's not going to keep me from speaking about it. Because until they get rid of that, until we start heading down that road, then I'm going to continue to call this stuff out for exactly what it is. It's a sham, and this is Soviet-like fascism we're watching happen to our country right now. And these judges should all be ashamed of themselves, all of them. Quote, Nate is just like us. He's an outspoken American patriot. He loves freedom, loves his country, and would do anything to preserve our rights. He's been fighting to save our country for years now. He's also a small business owner with a family that relies on him. We all know how heated this political climate is getting, but they've pushed too far, and it's time for people to speak up for people getting screwed by the system. BLM and Antifa can go burn down our cities and get off the hook, but Trump supporters get raided and rounded up for protesting. Nate's legal bills to fight these charges will be over $100,000, so we're donating $5,000. This is the Hodge twins talking. So we donated $5,000 to Nathan's defense fund to start it out, and hope you can donate something too. I've been donating like crazy, folks. I really have. I'm trying to donate as much as I can. Jenna Ellis, these 16 Republicans that have been indicted in Michigan with the average age of 70 that are facing years in prison, essentially facing the end of their life in prison for signing a piece of paper to be an alternate slate of electors. This is insane. This is stuff they did back in the Soviet Union, and we're watching it happen right here. The reason why I say the Soviet Union, because I cannot compare it to anything else but the Soviet Union. What we're watching right here is so reminiscent of communist Soviet Union that I don't even know what to compare it to anymore. We're entering into the phase of fascism with a totalitarian police state. It's wild, man. So Liberty Safe issued a statement clarifying their stance on cooperating with law enforcement. The company claims that it only provides access codes to authorities after receiving proper legal documentation and has denied requests in the past that lacked a valid warrant. I mean, I get it. Here's the statement from the safe company, Liberty Safe. On August 30th, Liberty Safe was contacted by the FBI requesting the access code to the safe of an individual for whom they had a warrant to search their property. Our company protocol is to provide access codes to law enforcement if a warrant grants them access to a property. After receiving the request, we received proof of the valid warrant, and not only did we provide them with an access code, Liberty Safe had no knowledge of any of the details surrounding the investigation at the time. Liberty Safe is devoted to protecting the personal property and Second Amendment rights of our customers and has repeatedly denied requests for access codes without a warrant in the past. We do not give out combinations without proper legal documentation being provided by authorities. Well, how about this, Liberty Safe? You ready for this? Stop keeping the combinations. How can you give them anything if you don't have it? I understand that it could cause a problem for customers in the future, but just make it be known. We don't carry combinations for safes anymore because we're tired of watching this country being taken over by a police state using Stasi secret police tactics. So we no longer carry combinations. If you accidentally get locked out of your safe, so sorry, we can sell you another safe. But this whole, what are they going to do? Just start tearing? It's clear and obvious that judges are handing out warrants for whatever reason they need. I mean, these judges are not even questioning anything these prosecutors are doing. They're not even questioning the clear and obvious prosecutorial and weaponization of our government. They're not even questioning it. They're just rubber stamping any warrant, anything they need at any point in time. They're rubber stamping verdicts. They're rubber stamping sentences. They're rubber stamping everything. This is the problem with the consolidated court system in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. These courts need broken up and scattered out throughout the country. There's no reason why Washington, D.C. needs to be the most powerful judicial and legislative body in the whole country. I guarantee the Founding Fathers would have broke these courts up already. You cannot have the second highest court in the land handling all the matters of the federal government. So, for instance, Jack Smith, he gets a grand jury in Washington, D.C., and then when he gets what he wants, he takes everything down to Florida and gets the grand jury down there to rubber stamp the indictments. You can't do that. Like, what kind of stuff is this? You get a grand jury in Washington, D.C. because you know they're going to give you what you want, and then you move the whole case to Florida? Why not just get a Florida grand jury? Because they know that what they're doing is BS. And the only way they're going to get any kind of indictments is in a Washington swamp or New York City. Any Democrat stronghold is going to rubber stamp anything anybody prosecuting or persecuting Donald Trump. So if anybody that is going after Donald Trump, these judges, these prosecutors, these DAs, and these grand juries will rubber stamp anything that they need. Because these people are consumed by hatred of Donald Trump, and they are blinded by this hatred to see the dangers that they are bringing onto this country. So, you know what? I don't know how I feel about this Liberty Safe, but I assure you I will not be buying a safe from them, and I recommend you go somewhere else for a safe too. If these people do not know what time it is, then I don't know. Imagine the founders, getting together their militias, and the king calls up and the king sends a letter and says, yeah, we're going to need the key to the militia's armory. And then the recipient just turns over the armory to the king. Do you think that would have happened back then? Probably not. That is what we're facing right now. We are a people up against a very, very corrupt and powerful system. That is what we're dealing with. I know it's not what you want to hear, but that's exactly what's happening. We are watching the beginning days of either the collapse or rise of our country. So we're either going to watch everything the founders created and fought for be destroyed, or we are going to watch everything the founders created be upheld by the American people by means of exactly how they did it. All of it is BS. So I wanted to open the show out with that because that really pissed me off, and I just seen that. I'm pissed off because some people don't understand what time it is. And so what they're going to do is they're just going to sit there and watch Trump supporter after Trump supporter get locked up one by one by one until there's nobody left. That's certainly it's certainly what it looks like they're doing. I mean, you got how many? What, 2,000? Maybe 1,500? So you got what, like 2,500 Trump supporters they've targeted so far? And I'm sure they're not over. I'm sure it's not over. Where they got the 16 up in Michigan that they're going to be trying to send them to prison for the rest of their life. You got the 19 down here in Georgia. You got the 2,000 they're coming after in January 6th. And then you got whoever else they need to get at. What's going to be next? Are they going to start coming after podcasters and intelligentsia? They're going to be coming after the intellectuals, the podcast creators, the radio hosts, the conservative newscasters, everything. That is what's going to be next, because what they're going to do is they're going to say that we are fomenting hate speech. This is what they're trying to do, man. I'm just telling you, the tactics that were used in the past are the same tactics that I'm seeing being used right now. And that is exactly what they're doing. And just like the past, we have a portion of the population that supports every bit of this, every single bit of it, unless it's BLM or Antifa. Then they don't support it. So they only support it if it goes against their political opposition. That is the stuff of fascists. I say this all the time. Hitler did not rise to power by himself. There was millions of people that supported his rise to fascism, and they actually cheered and supported for the persecution of Jews. That is what happened. And then when they got caught in the end, when they lost the war, then all these people that supported the rise of Hitler got to recede back into the shadows of society, never ever mentioning that they supported the whole damn thing to begin with. This is what happens. This is why it's important to not just defend people's rights when it's people you like, but you have to support and defend all people's rights, not just the people you like. There's no reason why a couple of lawyers that firebomb a police cruiser and had more firebombs that they planned on using gets 15 months in prison, and these people are getting 15 and 30 years for breaking a window? Really? People can't see the obvious disparate treatment in the law? This is not justice. This is a weaponized justice system is what this is. This is lawfare. So all these people are being prosecuted and persecuted because they think the 2020 election was stolen. Well, what happens 10 years from now we find out that the election was stolen? Seriously. I mean, why is it these people assume that everything was completely fine in the 2020 election? Because it certainly wasn't, and there's plenty of evidence to support it. The Supreme Court should have took up these cases back in 2020. They should have took up these cases after the 2020 election. But because they let these election cases go, this is what we're watching. So because the Supreme Court did not make any rulings on this, even though 3 of them agreed to hear the cases, but because Judge Roberts didn't want to do it because he was too afraid of the fascists, now all these things are happening to all these people. And then what's going to happen is 10 years from now, we're going to find out there's going to be a report just like the Durham report that comes out and says, yes, it is official. The 2020 election had massive amounts of fraud and even enough fraud to alter the outcome of the election. And then that would mean that all these people that were there protesting would be vindicated. All the people there would have been vindicated. And Donald Trump would have been vindicated for his outrage in that election, just like all of our outrages in that election. All of us are pissed off about that election. Folks, there was something wrong with that election. I don't care what anybody says. Everybody knows that that election was not the most secure election in our country's history, like they're telling us. There were not proper investigations done by Bill Barr at the Department of Justice, even though he said he investigated. I don't know how you can investigate for 3 days and say you did a proper investigation. That is why I think Bill Barr is turning on Donald Trump. He doesn't want Donald Trump to win because he knows Donald Trump is going to pull the Band-Aid off of Bill Barr not doing a proper investigation into these election fraud issues. There were a lot of election fraud issues, folks, a lot. And I'm not talking about machines. I'm not talking about ballot printing. I'm talking just legal issues with that election, like illegal changes to the law. Some of these states changed their election laws illegally against their own constitution. As far as like signature verification, absentee ballots and mail-in ballots and drop boxes. There were a lot of law changes because of COVID, and a lot of these changes were not done properly. And so therefore they were illegal changes, so therefore the law should have never been allowed, and so therefore you have a lot of ballots that are illegitimate and illegal ballots. There's a lot of cases, there's a lot of investigations going on out there right now, and all I see every other day is another case that comes to fruition. That exactly what people thought happened, like the pipes busting in that count center. And then we find out no pipe busted. So they essentially sent the Republican counters home for no reason. And then while the Republicans were gone, they continued to count ballots. That is illegal. You cannot do that. That is against the law. So what are we going to do about these issues? These are the types of issues that people have a problem with. Yeah, granted, some people have problems with the machines. Some people have problems with the way things were handled and the USPS truck full of ballots that went missing and crossed state lines. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff we have problems with. There was a lot of shenanigans that happened in the 2020 election. And so for Bill Barr to say that there was no fraud in that election, this is why he knows his ass is grass if Donald Trump wins. Bill Barr needs to be held accountable for not doing his damn job for the American people. So I got an article here, speaking of shenanigans in the 2020 election. Got a breaking story here, hat tip to Jordan Conradson. Arizona judge defines voter registration record and rules that mail-in ballot signatures have been compared illegally. Exactly what I was just talking about. A lot of these things that these states did, they did illegally. They were not supposed to do these things, and they did it anyways. That kind of stuff alters elections. So we don't question the 2020 election for no reason. We have legitimate concerns about the 2020 election. And this is why 10 or 15 years down the road, you're going to find out that, yes, that election was indeed stolen. It was a rigged election, and there was enough fraud to overturn the results of the election. So who's going to be held accountable when that comes out? Who's going to be held accountable 10 years from now when it turns out that the shenanigans and all the fraud and all these illegal acts that happened during the 2020 election turn out to be true? Who's going to be held accountable? And so this is why the election process is not going to get fixed. It can't get fixed because people can't admit that there was a problem with that election. They don't want to admit there was a problem with that election because that would mean Donald Trump would be right. They don't want Donald Trump to be right because that would mean they were wrong. Nobody likes to admit they were wrong. I'm sorry. It is a natural instinct. It's a human instinct. Nobody likes to admit when they're wrong. But it takes a real man, it takes a real person with dignity and self-respect to admit when they're wrong. These people have neither. And so that is why we're watching this whole thing go down. Nobody wants to admit they're wrong. Same thing with COVID. Still, to this day, people will not admit that it was a bad idea for mandates, that mask mandates and vaccine mandates were a bad idea. People don't want to admit, the scientists and doctors that were wrong about everything don't want to admit that they were wrong. They don't want to admit it. And so a Yavapai County judge last week ruled in favor of the Arizona Free Enterprise Club and restoring integrity and trust in elections in a recent lawsuit that seeks to prohibit the Arizona Secretary of State from enforcing illegal election procedures relating to mail-in ballot signature verification. This was a huge problem in the 2020 election. Mail-in ballots should be illegal. There should be no such thing as these mass mail-in ballots anymore. This goes against everything that we have known since the beginning of elections when it comes to election security. Mass mail-in balloting is dangerous. Mass mail-in balloting invites fraud, corruption. It just does. It just does. This is why people don't have mail-in balloting when they do elections. They don't do these when we invoke our democracy in other countries like Iraq. You guys remember the stained fingers where they had to dip their fingers in ink in order to vote with their fingerprints? Here it is. We secure the elections of other countries better than we secure our own elections. It is so typical for this fascist government to treat other countries better than ours. It is so typical. We see this over and over and over again. We protect the borders of Ukraine better than we protect our own southern border. We secure elections better in other countries than we secure our elections here in this country. It is, it's true. It's just the truth. And so Judge John Napper rejected the motions to dismiss filed by Secretary of State Adrian Fuentes, a former cartel lawyer, and the My Familia Vota, a Democrat nonprofit. A status conference has been set for Tuesday, September 19th, 2023 at 9 a.m. The judge notes in his order, quote, "The court finds the special action state's claim upon which relief can be granted. The court finds the plaintiffs have correctly defined registration record. The 2019 EPM creates a process that contradicts the plain language of ARS Section 16550A. Therefore, this portion of the EPM and the instruction from the Secretary do not have the force of law." So this is how they steal elections in Arizona. Hundreds of thousands of fraudulent ballots are trafficked or inserted with no chain of custody documentation, and someone forges a signature. Sometimes all it takes is a random scribble on the affidavit. Under the current Arizona Elections Procedures Manual, when a signature is accepted on a mail-in ballot envelope or a voter uses an in-person polling place touchscreen signature log, it is added to the voter's registration record to be used for future reference. Many voters were seen with similar affidavit signatures in consecutive elections that do not match other signatures on their voter registrations or past affidavits. County recorders just need to cheat consistently with the same BS signatures. The new ruling will require voter registration forms to be used for signature verification as opposed to previously accepted fraudulent mail-in ballots and other signature forms. Documents are a part of the registration record, only if they involve the voter's registration, the judge stated. The order continues. Registering to vote is not the same as voting. Applying the plain and obvious meaning of registration, the legislature intended for the recorder to attempt to match the signature on the outside of the envelope to the signature on the documents the putative voter used to register. Judge Napper concluded, saying, quote, "The language of the statute is clear and unambiguous. However, in the last two elections in Maricopa County, hundreds of thousands of signatures were discovered to be verified in just a few seconds each. A true comparison of signatures, as required by law, takes much, much longer to do properly. Unscrupulous election employees have been caught not even looking at the signatures. At least one employee simply approved tens of thousands of ballots in a matter of seconds, each without looking to verify their accuracy. Mail-in ballots cannot be trusted for free and fair elections." The Gateway Pundit also reported on an exclusive analysis of a small sample of 2022 election mail-in ballot signatures. Roughly 10% of the signatures were clear forgeries. Similar to this lawsuit challenging signature verification processes, the Gateway Pundit recently reported that Kari Lake's lawsuit to access public records from Arizona's fraudulent 2022 mail-in ballots is going to trial this month. This is evidence they need to prove the election was stolen in their ongoing appeal against Judge Thompson's bogus rulings. Lake's attorneys are expected to file an appeal to the dismissal of her case and fight it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court if necessary. Likewise, the judge in Lake's case stated, quote, "I am not convinced that the ballot affidavit is a voter registration record. It is a record from which the election officials derive information that becomes part of the voter registration record. But that doesn't mean the ballot affidavit itself is a voter registration record." So Kari Lake attorney Brian Blem, who is currently engaging in similar litigation against Maricopa County's fraudulent signature verification system, celebrated the win for election integrity with a repost on Tuesday. And Brian states, breaking Arizona court news. Yavapai County court order shows SOS Adrian Fuentes and Stephen Riker violated Arizona law in 2020 and 2022. So who's going to be held accountable? How can we just allow elections to happen, and then after the results are in and somebody's elected, and then 2 years later they find out that they shouldn't have been elected because those ballots don't count, or 2 years later they find out thousands of ballots shouldn't have been counted and were counted illegally? What is the remedy to all these issues? It can't be, oh, you just have to get them next time, because Democrats and these people that are cheating in these elections are just going to come up with different violations every single election. This is ridiculous. This stuff needs to be handled before the elections. Because what are the remedies to all this? How is anybody going to say that in Arizona's 2022 election was legit when we find out that they counted thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of ballots that shouldn't have been counted? How is that a legit election? It's not. It's not a legit election. When you are not verifying signatures, when that is exactly what signature verification is supposed to be, how is that a legit election? How can somebody verify a signature in a second? You can't. It's impossible. And yet this person verified 10,000 signatures? How do we know those signatures were the right signatures and they weren't forgeries? And in fact, that's exactly what they're claiming, is that there's thousands and thousands of forged ballots. What is the remedy to this? This is the kind of stuff that we must figure out before 2024, because these people are going to do it again. The only way to fix this is with voter ID and in-person voting. That is it. And there's only one side that doesn't want that. Why? What would be the motive behind not wanting to secure your elections? To make it easier to vote and harder to cheat. Voter ID? What is so wrong with that? You need to show ID for everything, but yet it's the Democrats that don't want voter ID. They don't want voter ID because they know they cheat in elections. That is why. The only people that would want insecure elections are the people that are cheating. The same way a psychotic mass shooter goes to gun-free zones because they know that there's not going to be anybody there with guns. The Democrats don't want voter ID because they know they're going to be submitting and there's going to be illegal ballots. Like, I mean, it's clear and obvious. The problem with the 2020 election, and apparently in the 2022 election, is that all these law changes happened, and in some of these states happened illegally, and there's no remedies after the fact. So when you increase the mail-in ballots by millions and millions of ballots, and you decrease the threshold for signature verification, I mean, it is almost a certainty you are going to have problems. But yet, these are the types of elections Democrats want. These are the elections Democrats want for this country. This is why I say Democrats could care less about democracy. They hate it. They hate it. They don't want people to be able to choose who they want to run their country, who they want to be their leader. This is why they can never run on their ideas, because their ideas suck. And they are increasingly sucking, and people are starting to realize that their ideas are increasingly sucking every single election. So what do they have to do? They have to lower the threshold, lower the bar of security. Essentially, make our elections easier to cheat in. Did you know that the Amazon, when they were voting for the union, they did not allow mail-in ballots? The only way you can vote for the union at Amazon is in person, with ID. But yet, Amazon, Jeff Bezos, is one of these people that are completely okay with no signature verification, count all ballots, not all legal ballots. This is what it is, because I was a Democrat. You ready for this? I know how these people think. They think that because you are here in the country, then you should have a say-so in how the country is ran. They do not care if you're illegal. They do not care if you have ID. They don't care if you're eligible to vote or not. They do not go by the phrase, count all legal ballots. They go by the phrase, count all ballots. This is how these people think. And so this is why they don't care about election security. They don't care. Trust me, if the roles were reversed, we would have the most secure damn elections in this country's history. You'd have to do a retinal palm scan just to go in and vote. You'd have to go in and do a freaking hair follicle test just to go cast your ballot. This is the same reason why they don't allow Cubans in this country, because they know Cubans are more likely to vote Republicans. Did you guys know that when all the Cubans came over here, they turned their asses right around and sent them back? Because they know Cubans are more likely to vote Republican. But yet they weld open the doors at our southern border. Literally weld open the doors. Because they know people, whoever they let in, they know they're trying to change the voter demographic in this country. They're trying to turn states like Texas blue and Arizona blue. This is what they're trying to do. And so this is why from the very beginning of the show, I was talking about how these judges and these DAs and prosecutors should be ashamed of themselves. Well, maybe. They don't have any shame left. But somebody needs to be held accountable when 10 years down the road we find out that after a dozen of cases like this, it turns out that the 2020 election was riddled with fraud, and the fraud was enough to overturn and alter the results of the election. Are any of these judges or DAs or prosecutors going to say anything after they just railroaded thousands of people and threw people in prison and ruined their lives because they said the 2020 election was stolen? Because they believed the 2020 election was stolen. This is why the case against Donald Trump is going to be so difficult, because they have to prove that Donald Trump didn't think the 2020 election was stolen and continue to say it was stolen. Trust me, they're never going to be able to prove that, because everybody that thinks the election was stolen knows the election was stolen. Everybody that thinks the election was rigged and was a sham job of an election continues to think it was a sham election. Nobody's changing their mind. If anything, it's going the opposite way. The more these cases come out, the more the investigations are done, and the more evidence that comes out, the more it shows people that the 2020 election was everything but the most secure election in this nation's history. In fact, it says the exact opposite. So I thought you might want to hear that, considering how we're going through all this madness because of the thousands of people that went there to go protest that sham election are all being targeted by the Biden administration and the Stasi secret police that we have now in our America, our Sovietized America, in our Sovietized United States. We are watching the Sovietization of the United States of America, and it's sad and it pisses me off, man. I hate to see this type of damage being done, because it's not me that I'm worried about. It's my children. It's my grandchildren that I might have one day. Why would I want to leave them a country where we have a corrupt political establishment and a fascist totalitarian nation? I wouldn't. So you're going to find out one day, I mean, maybe a long time down the road, or maybe even soon, people are going to start fleeing this place because it's going to be turned into a one-party state, a one-party police state ran by the Democrats and this corrupt establishment that we have in Washington, D.C. People are going to start migrating to different countries. But I got news for them. We're the only thing left. We're the last thing standing. If this place goes to the way of communism, there's nowhere else to run. And so this is why people know that the United States, it's so important to get to the bottom of all this stuff. It is so important to allow people to have free speech. It is so important to have secure elections. Because if these people rig our elections every single election, you don't have a country. All you have is like the Soviet freaking Union, man. That is what we're watching. It's like these people learn nothing about history. Nothing. So speaking of the corrupt establishment in our nation's capital, as this corrupt bureaucracy and this radicalized judicial system in our nation's capital are on a jihad against anything Trump and his voters, we have a war brewing. And I'm going to say it, I'm with Tucker Carlson on this. I think it's all part of these sick people's plan to keep power for the 2024 election. I really do. I think these people are escalating this war purposely because, A, the military-industrial complex needs money, and war brings in money. Okay, governments prosper when they're in war. The people don't, but the government does. And so the military-industrial complex needs war. This is why Donald Trump got us out of one war, and then 6 months later, the Biden administration and the Democrats get us into another war. The military-industrial complex consistently needs war, and this is Republicans too. The corrupt uniparty likes war. They love war. Lindsey Graham loves war. Mitch McConnell loves war. These people, this is how they make all their money. This is how they get all their power. They love war. And so one of the reasons why I think they're escalating this war and they're trying to get us involved, and just like Tucker said, he was doing an interview with a general that says there's an 80% likelihood that we're going to be in a hot kinetic war with Russia in the next coming year or two. And that brings me to this story right here. Russia puts nuclear-capable superweapon, the Satan II missile, on combat duty. So this is an article from the New York Post. Hat tip to Senyana Ferberov. Russia announced Friday it had put its nuclear-capable Satan II intercontinental ballistic missiles on combat duty for the first time. The missile, also known as Sarmat and classified as a superweapon by Russia, was introduced in 2018 and had been scheduled to deploy for combat duty at the end of 2022. The Sarmat strategic complex has been put on combat duty. Yuri Borisov, the head of the Russian space agency Roscosmos, said in a media appearance organized by Russia's Knowledge Society, the state news service TASS reported. The Sarmat or Satan II missile will replace the aging Soviet-era Voyevoda intercontinental. I can't even pronounce some of this stuff. Russian seems like the hardest damn language to try and pronounce. The Voyevoda intercontinental ballistic missile, known by the NATO designation SS-18 Satan, which has been Russia's arsenal since 1988. With an estimated range between 6,200 and 11,800 miles, the Satan II has the capability to deliver a 10-ton payload containing 10 to 15 nuclear warheads at once to any location around the world. After a successful test launch of Satan II last year, Russia President Vladimir Putin boasted that Satan II had no competition and would make Russia's enemies think twice before issuing threats. Russia's saber-rattling leader also warned the missile is capable of overcoming all modern means of anti-missile defense. Asked Friday about Russia's superweapon, White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby told reports on a conference call that he was not in a position to confirm reports that Satan II missiles had been put on combat duty. Of course not. These people lie to us about everything. I don't even know why we have a press anymore. Because they won't answer questions if they don't want to. And when they do answer questions, it's a damn lie. So it's like, Joe Biden said he was going to give us the most transparent administration, but this guy's been the complete opposite. Everything about this administration is a lie and a cover-up. We literally have a Department of Justice, an Attorney General that exists, which seems like only for one reason, and that is to cover up for Joe Biden and his corrupt family and to persecute Joe Biden's political opponents. So it's like, what are we doing here, man? It's absolutely incredible. And so now we are on the brink of World War III. So how about that? How about those Biden voters out there? What do they have to say? How can these people honestly sit there and say that people should continue to vote for this? People should not continue to vote for this. This is insanity. For people to sit there and want to vote for their own destruction is insanity. There's no way this country can sustain another 6 years of this. There's no freaking way. And so, just like I said, I'm with Tucker. I think we're probably going to be in a hot war with Russia. And I've been saying this for months. I've been saying this for almost a whole year. And in fact, I remember the first week of this podcast, I remember reporting on the war in Ukraine, and I said it's going to be a 10 to 20 year war, and we're going to be involved eventually. And I guarantee we already have mercenary groups over there right now. And I knew I told people on the show, I said we're going to be spending hundreds of billions of dollars, if not in the trillions, just like we did in the 20-year Iraq war. And it's all going to be one giant sham. And we're not going to know until 20 years down the road, just like we didn't know about there not being no weapons of mass destruction. They lied about going to war with that. They lied about weapons of mass destruction. And so what do people think they're doing here? This war is not anything people think it is. And the United States may be the biggest provocateur in this whole damn thing. We are not innocent in this, and neither is Ukraine, and neither is Russia. Nobody's innocent in any of this. But people shouldn't want this war to continue just so what? The United States can cripple Russia's military through proxy? It doesn't make sense. For how long? What, a decade? And how pissed off do you think that's going to make Russia? I mean, they're already forming alliances with our other enemies, China. The last thing the United States wanted was a Russia-China alliance again. And that's exactly what happened. This Biden administration and our feckless, useless leaders essentially pushed Russia into China's arms. We have such stupid, stupid leaders, man. We really do. We have a bunch of Joe Bidens. Imagine this country being ran by somebody like Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the definition of an idiot. And not just an idiot, but now he's an idiot with dementia. I don't know how you can get any dumber than that. How do you get dumber than an idiot with dementia? I mean, you don't. You really don't. I mean, no offense to anybody out there with dementia, not that you would remember me saying this anyways, but I'm just saying, like, what is worse than somebody that's already got the IQ of a toaster and has dementia? What is the benefit? What is the purpose? How is it that we elected somebody like this? How is it Democrats elect people like John Fetterman? How is this possible? Because we have a bunch of brainwashed, propagandized, Trump-deranged lunatics that can't see anything past their blind hatred for Donald Trump. And they will go scorched earth to get him. Whatever getting him means, I have no idea. At this point, I don't even think these people know. They have no idea why they hate Trump. Because Joe Biden is everything they said Donald Trump was. He's not a good man. He's a liar. He's a sexual assaulter. You guys remember that? He sexually assaults women with Tara Reid. And let's not get started with his daughter's diary about him taking inappropriate showers with his daughter. Let's see what else he is. He's mean. He says nasty things. He has no compassion. He has no empathy. I can't think of anything less sympathetic than going to Hawaii where hundreds of people died, everybody lost their home, and you talk about a kitchen fire that you had, and you tell everyone how you can relate to their pain. And then, on your way out, you leave them a $700 check, while at the same time, simultaneously, the same day, you send $200 and something million to Ukraine, to another country. Explain this. Please make it make sense. How would anybody want to vote for this? It doesn't make sense. I think we just have a large group of people that they have psychologically and mentally broke down. They are psychologically and mentally broken people. We have a mass portion of this population that is psychologically broken. They need to be admitted to a mental hospital. They need psychological help. They need psychotherapy. And this is what happens when you have millions of people that have a psychotic breakdown, is you get the disaster we are witnessing right now. And I say this all the time. You know, Democrats deserve Joe Biden. These people, you know, the leftists that sit there and are trying to convince people to continue voting for this, they deserve Joe Biden. But the rest of us don't. The American people, the patriotic American-loving people, do not deserve what they are getting from this administration. This is not the country I want to leave to my kids. At all. I don't even like where this country is heading. And neither do 70% of Americans, including Democrats. Imagine that. 7 out of 10 people think this country is going in the wrong direction. So Why would that be a country anybody would want to leave to their kids? Why aren't these people changing course? Why are they not changing the way they vote? Can they not correlate the two? Can they not connect the dots? No, they can't. They are unable to do anything rational because they have lost all reason and all rationale because they are suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. Donald Trump is on these people's minds 24/7. They are in a cult. And I'm sorry, but people that are in a cult don't realize they're in a cult until after they leave the cult. So these people will only realize this down the road when all the damage is done. And you know what they'll do when this country descends into a totalitarian fascist state? They'll point the finger at the other side and say, where were you guys when you guys let this place turn into this communist regime? They'll blame the other side. They'll blame Republicans. I guarantee you they will. I guarantee it. I'm seeing people right now on Twitter blame Republicans for the vaccine not working. It's like, wait, what? Yeah. They're actually blaming Republicans, saying, oh, well, this is your president's vaccine. It's like, wait a minute. Well, you toted this vaccine, you took this vaccine, and you tried forcing everyone else to take the vaccine. And now all of a sudden you're blaming the efficacy on Republicans? These people are nuts. They have lost their mind. So, look, like I said in the previous episode, I see light at the end of the tunnel. I have hope, and you should have hope too. And the hope is that people are starting to see right through this BS. People are starting to compare and contrast the administrations, and people will not continue to vote for this disaster. They won't. I'm telling you, sane, rational people. Granted, yeah, you're going to have millions of people that still pull the lever for Joe Biden for whatever reason because, vote blue no matter who. You know how that goes. But the independents are going to be deciding this election, and there's not many out there. But I promise you, that list of people that are going to pull that lever for Donald Trump so that they can stop this disaster is growing by the day. Because sometimes you got to fall, sometimes you got to hit rock bottom in order for you to crawl out. And these people are hitting rock bottom, and in fact, the whole damn country is hitting rock bottom right now. It can get much, much worse, and I expect it to. But listen, we're not too far off from the very bottom. I will say it's time to panic. And so that's why I say it's not time to panic yet. But I would say it's time to panic when you have the full-blown police state, the Democrats, this uniparty, this corrupt establishment, going after anybody that voted for Donald Trump. When you start having roundups and Republicans being rounded up and thrown in concentration camps, or you have them targeted, and I'm not talking about with like warrants, I'm not talking, when you literally have something that we experienced or we witnessed happen in Nazi Germany, where they just went around and just started, when they start sending Republicans to concentration camps and they call them re-education camps, that's when it's time to worry. That's when it's time to panic. As of now, I see us in a hot kinetic war with Russia before we're at war with each other. But it is going to take a disaster like that to heal this country. It is. Joe Biden promised unity and gave us a freaking banana republic, man. And so it is going to take a catastrophic event in order to unify this country. And just like the title of my previous episode, the corrupt Washington establishment is actually unifying this country against the corrupt Washington establishment. They are doing this with all their mass corruption, all these bogus indictments, all the impeachments and investigations and DAs and AGs, all the weaponized justice system, all the disparate treatment between Democrats and Republicans, all the bad policies, all of it. But as of right now, it's not time to panic. And in fact, I actually see light at the end of the tunnel. I really do. I do in my personal life as far as my friends and colleagues. And when I say that these were anti-Trump people, they were anti-Trump people. But you know what they're saying now? He wasn't this bad. That's what they're saying. They're saying, I thought Donald Trump was bad until I voted for Joe Biden. And so these are sane, rational people. So these are the people that will pull the lever for Donald Trump because They just want to be able to fill their gas tank up for $25 again. They just want to be able to afford a better quality of life. They just want their wages to outpace inflation. These people do not like Donald Trump. In fact, they despise him. But their family and their well-being come before a political party. And so this is why they are going to vote the exact opposite of the way they voted in 2020. So there's your positive outlook for today. And I'm telling you, have hope. It's going to get a little bit worse before it gets better, but I promise you it's going to get better. So just hang in there, hold the phalanx, hold the line, and we're going to be all right. We're going to get through this, and we're going to be on to greener pastures on the other side. But I think this will be a good learning lesson on how fast a government can turn a rogue government can turn a country into a fascist police state when nobody's paying attention. I think this is a good example. I think this is a good reminder to people on why you need to constantly and persistently protect your rights. And always fight these things, because these things are worth fighting for. And so I think people just had their feet kicked up for so long, and they just felt like the government had their best interest, and it didn't. And this is what happens when you have a rogue power structure in your federal government. When you have a rogue fascist regime like we're watching happen right now. This massive fourth branch of government that's been created, where they have their own judicial system, they have their own elections, they have their own judiciary, they have their own everything. Everything is right there in that one swamp. The whole damn corrupt system is all right there in Washington, D.C. And so Donald Trump gets elected, and he will, because you're going to see the American people give this rogue government and this Biden administration the biggest middle finger they can find. And that middle finger is Donald Trump. The Donald Trump's Project 2025 gives me a lot of hope in what's going to be able to get accomplished in 4 years. And I think he's going to pick Ron DeSantis as his VP. And together, these guys are going to get this country back on track. It is going to be awesome. It is going to be amazing. It really is. That is if we haven't lost our elections already. So, way to go, Democrats, for completely destroying the trust and integrity in our elections, and then blaming Donald Trump for doing it. These people cheated and rigged elections and changed election laws and committed some of the biggest shenanigans, some of the biggest skullduggery in our elections that we've ever seen, and then have the audacity to point the finger at Donald Trump and Republicans for questioning elections, for destroying the credibility and trust in our elections. These people are incorrigible. These people are disgusting, disgraceful. And I could think of a list a mile long of other words I'd like to say, but I won't. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be working on a show right after this. Like always, I have a lot of stuff we're going to be talking about. Again, I wanted to touch down on that Tucker interview with that Sinclair guy, and his the relationship with Obama that he had, smoking crack and all kinds of stuff. I believe that story. I really do. And I'm an Obama voter, and I'm telling you, I believe that story. I believe this guy. Even though this guy seems to come from a real shady background, for some reason, I believe this guy. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Plus, I also got an article of this. I wanted to touch down on these conservatives in the Supreme Court and how they're under attack, because that's what fascists do. They don't want separation of powers. They want one gigantic one-party system that controls everything, like a bunch of totalitarians. So I want to talk about the Supreme Court and how the conservatives are under attack. And then also I got this really crazy article from the Epic Times talking about this guy, Patrick Brown. And he says he deliberately omitted key fact in climate change piece he's just had published in prestigious journal to ensure woke editors ran it, that 80% of wildfires are started by humans. And so what he does, this guy is great. is he's a scientist. He's from a prestigious college, a well-renowned college. He's a genius. I actually think I think by definition, he's a genius. Anyways, he deliberately writes papers that follow the narrative, even though he knows different. But he'll write because I guess for a long time when he was in college, he would try to get papers omitted into the journals, and they would never take his papers. Even though they were scientifically accurate, they would never take his papers until he started writing papers that went along with their narrative, especially when it comes to climate change. And he said whenever he started deliberately omitting information but was submitting papers that supported the narrative, then his papers were being accepted by these prestigious journals. And so, I mean, what does that tell you? And so I wanted to get into an article that I got about him and climate change and the wildfires and stuff. So, well, again, we got a lot of stuff to talk about on the next episode, so please be sure to tune into that. Also, if you guys got any questions, let me know. Shoot me an email. Let me know how you think of the show. Let me know how I'm doing. I love constructive criticism. I think it's the most useful thing when doing stuff like this and podcasts because I make the show for you. And so, therefore, I want you to enjoy the show. And if there's something that you want me to do better, or if there's something I can do better, or if there's a story or a particular segment you want me to do, give me some feedback. Send me an email, StephenTorrielloShow@gmail.com. I will respond back to you. If you got something cool you want me to read on the air, send it to me. I will respond back to you, and I will double check. And if I can read it on the show, then I'll read it on the show. So, yeah, so let me know how I'm doing. Give me some feedback. I love feedback from you guys. You guys are doing great. Again, you're doing awesome with sharing the episodes. You're doing awesome with sharing the show. I see it in the numbers. We're getting serious now, folks. And again, I'm promoting the show on Facebook and Instagram. I've kind of eased up a little bit from TikTok because I still do TikTok clips, but I don't do as much because I just don't have the time to do all these social media platforms. I don't have anybody else to help me with here, folks. So I do the show completely 100% by myself. I do not have a show note creator. I do not have a producer. I don't have a promoter. I don't have anything these other podcasts have. We're a one-man band here. I do all this myself on top of working my regular day job. So I can only do so much within the time that I have. So I'm right now, since I'm just going to kind of stagger the social media platforms that I promote on, and we're going to try and go that route. I think there's an entire audience that I haven't really tapped into when it comes to Facebook and Instagram. Because, obviously different age people and different generations go on different social media platforms. And so for my generation, I'm an 80s baby. My generation is Facebook. But kids, younger people, which is obviously a demographic that I want to reach out to because, younger people are important. They're our future leaders. I've been submitting 1-minute clips and 5-minute clips to TikTok. That's been really successful, and I'm going to keep doing it, but I want to shift gears towards Facebook into another demographic. And so, like I said, you're going to start seeing my shows on Facebook and stuff. So please tell your friends and family to go to my Facebook page, The Stephen Torriello Show on Facebook. Tell them to follow the show there. And if you see any of my content, I would really appreciate it if you shared it with your friends and family, shared it with your friends. Whenever you see the content, just share it with your friends and family. That's going to help out the show a lot. And like always, I would really appreciate it. So if you want to get in contact with me, StephenTorrielloShow@gmail.com. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, I want you guys to have a good day. Have a great week. God bless you, and God bless America. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.